Good morning, gentlemen. Welcome to the Complete with Purdeep Show. My name is Purdeep Sangha, and I am your host for today. You definitely want to stay tuned for today's episode because we have an amazing guest on, a very successful entrepreneur who's going to talk about the great things that he's gone through in life, but also some of the challenges when it comes to being a successful business owner or an entrepreneur and building a business from scratch and learning along the way. So stay tuned for that. But before we bring our guest on, I would really appreciate it if you could please like and share this episode. The more traction we get with this show, the better, because we're all about helping men be more successful in every aspect of your lives. And that's what the show is really about. If you've been watching the last number of episodes, it's all about driving value in every aspect, whether that's in your business, your personal life, your relationships, as a father, because there's no point in living a one-dimensional life like a lot of guys live. You might have complete success in your business, but if your home life is failing, if you're not there for your family, for your kids, for your wives, it's all for nothing, because we work our butts off for our families. The majority of guys that I know that are successful are doing it because they want to give other people a better life. And so stay tuned, because we're going to talk about the strategies for that. But we also have our backstage guy that's going to come on here and you can say, give you some happy tunes for the day. It's Thursday. We got one more day before we hit Friday. So Elio, where are you, man?
I am here. Come on, everybody, get up, baby, this morning. Hey, it is St. Valentine's Day, man. We're a few days, so I'm gonna sing something pretty cool for everybody that is watching out there. So this and darling. Here we go. That was Stand By Me. Come on.
I'm going to give you some claps there.
Come on, awesome. Everybody.
Elio, how's your day going, man?
Man, my day is better than good and better than most. Sometimes it's even better than that. So, yeah.
How are things down in Florida right now?
Things are pretty warm, pretty warm, compared to most places. So I really appreciate that. And by the way, talking about warm, I had something else for you.
There we
go. In case you want some Santana tune, stuff like that.
I think that's kind of the theme we're going to have to stick to, man, because I'm stuck up here in Canada, just outside of Toronto, and it's cold. You can't see it, but my office is all windows pretty much. All 3.5 walls are all windows, and it gets freezing cold in here in the winter. So that's why I'm always wearing a blazer and stuff in here. I got a heater cranked. I wish I was in Florida right now. So when that border opens up a little bit, I'll come down and visit you.
Come on, we're going to have some fun down here in North Florida. So you guys out there, happy Valentine's Day for everybody that is watching. Have a wonderful day, and we're going to see you next time.
And then for those of you out there who don't know Elio or haven't seen him before, he is our producer. He's an awesome guy. He's also a musician. And he produces professional podcasts and shows like this. And he's got a company called the Fiesta Media Group. I would definitely check him out if you're interested in the entertainment world. So I'm not going to waste any more time. I want to bring on our guest here. This gentleman is a successful owner of an insurance company. Welcome, John Darr. He's the owner of, I'm going to butcher this name because he told me a number of times here. So it's Darr Shakow, right?
Close.
Darr Shakow.
Yes. Darr Shakow. Yes. You're awesome. Not the first one to butcher that, for sure.
Hey, thanks, John, for joining us. You and I had a really good conversation before backstage here. So maybe you can tell our audience a little bit about you in terms of your background, because I was definitely interested in hearing your story, and it's very unique.
Sure. So I was born and raised here in Gainesville. My father was the golf coach back in I guess the late 70s. I was born in 1969, so now you know how old I am. But I was born here when he was actually in school. He was in grad school. He played played golf for Florida, and they won a national title in 1968. And I was born in 69, and then I was basically raised here pretty much my whole life. went to high school here and went to University of Florida actually to play baseball. I walked on to the University of Florida in 1988, and I tell people, they were ranked number 1 in the fall of 1988. So I'm 6'4", I'm a pretty big guy, but they didn't need another first baseman, pitcher kind of guy at all. So I didn't really make the team. So I decided to focus on my degree and just study and get a degree. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, although I love business. I was a finance major when I was at Florida. And then I started playing golf again. I played when I was a little kid, but I started playing golf again because I lived with a guy on the golf team. So I started playing golf in college, my freshman year of college again, and got to where I was pretty competitive. So he told me all the time, he's like, John, you still have eligibility left. You should try to go play college golf somewhere. And I said, well, I don't have a resume. I was playing in some amateur tournaments, but I'm doing pretty well, but nothing to speak of. But so there's a little school in South Carolina that the coach played at Clemson when my dad was the coach at Florida. So he recognized my name and he says, you know what, little school. I didn't need a scholarship, thankfully. So he says, I'll give you a shot. I'll put you on the team. So I went up to this little school in Aiken, South Carolina, Division II school, just outside of Augusta, Georgia, which for those golfers out there know that the Masters is held in Augusta, and Aiken's about 15 minutes from Augusta, Georgia. So I thought I was going to like the Mecca of golf. It was, it's a great place. So I ended up played up there for a couple years. My last year I was an All-American, so I did really well my senior year. And then when I graduated, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I had a degree, and I was playing golf all the time, so I thought about turning pro and playing professionally. And I tell people this story all the time. I went to my dad. I said, Dad, I think I'm going to turn pro and start playing on the pro tour. And he looked at me and he says, John, let me ask you a question. I said, yes, sir. He says, could I beat Jack Nicklaus? In other words, could he beat Jack Nicklaus? And he played on tour and all that stuff too. And I said, well, no, sir. You couldn't beat Jack Nicklaus, back when you tried. And he says, okay, well, he says, can you beat me? And I said, well, sometimes, but not that often. He's a really good player. To this day, 73 years old, and he's still a really, really good player.
Can he still beat you?
It's a toss up. I mean, I don't play as much as him. He's retired, so he plays all the time. But he looked at me. He says, "Can you beat me?" And I said, "Well, not really." He says, "Well, what in the heck makes you think you're going to beat Jack Nicklaus? If I can't beat Jack Nicklaus and you can't beat me, why are you thinking about turning pro?" And I went, "Oh, thanks, Dad. That was a really motivating talk." But he says, what you should do is go get your insurance license, because you'll live a much better life as an insurance agent than you would as a pro golfer. And I was telling you earlier, one of my strengths is I felt like I've always been able to get along with all different types of people. I tell people I was friends in high school. I felt like I was friends with the nerds. I was friends with the athletes. I was friends with the different races. I was friends with all kinds of different groups of people. And my dad sort of saw that in me. He said, people love you. People, you resonate with everybody you meet and everybody you run into. They just feel like they know you and they like you. And he said, that for an insurance agent is a huge, valuable trait, because you're going to have to deal with people of all types, people that are bullheaded and people that are go with the flow. And, you're going to have to deal with all of those. So he says, go get your insurance license, and I promise you'll make twice as much money as you'll ever make on tour. So that's what I did. So in And when I got done with school, I went and got my license and started. Now, my dad this was in 1993. So I graduated in college from 93. In 1992, he went and started his own independent agency. So when I graduated and started, he didn't have enough clients for himself, much less any clients to give me. So he handed me a phone book. In those days, there were phone books and a phone. And he said, listen, you've got to go build relationships. You've got to go get in front of people. You've got to, do whatever you can to leverage your skill and your trade of being, an approachable, outgoing, friendly, engaging guy. And so I did in every way I knew possible. I went to every chamber meeting. I went to every networking event that I possibly could go to. And I learned early on that, that just creating that perception of the insurance guy or the guy that sells insurance became valuable. And that became my persona. And that's who, yes, they knew I played college golf, and a lot of people learned that, and they knew me as sort of a golfer. But really, I was trying to be an insurance guy. And it's amazing how in our business, everybody has to have insurance. Whether you own a car or a house or, I don't care. Even if you rent an apartment, you should have renter's insurance. You need health insurance. You probably should have life insurance. There's everybody needs some level of insurance. So everybody I tried to build a relationship with, needed me at some point. Now, a lot of times they didn't need me. Like if I wanted to talk to them about insurance, they're like, I don't even think about that until August. So don't even talk to me about that yet. And that's okay. But when August rolled around, they would say, I know, like, and trust you, John. Show me what you can do. Here's your chance. And that's really all I asked for. So when I networked, I was pretty good at it. I felt like because I wasn't necessarily selling, like a lot of people go into networking meetings and they're all, cards in hand and trying to sell. I just wanted to meet them. I wanted to know more about them than they want. Obviously, they didn't necessarily want to know anything about me. So I approached it from, hey, tell me a little bit about you as a person. Tell me who you are and what your likes are and dislikes. We can talk about insurance. That day will come, I'm sure. But that's sort of the way I approach networking. And back when we did it in person, it was fun. A lot of times, I was going to parties and networking events and dinners and all that kind of stuff. So I loved it. Some people hate it, but I really thrived in that situation, and it worked, and then we hired our first associate agent, and then we hired another associate agent and tried to help them and build a platform for those people to run on. And now we have 56 employees, and we actually do business in 32 states. We've had as many as 7 offices, but due to COVID, we've closed a couple offices just because people don't go into the insurance office anymore. It's not the way they do it. So, it reduces our expenses. The insurance game has changed from networking's different. Networking is now done on social media, podcasting, YouTube, all those. You have to try to communicate and network that way. So,
it's different now for sure.
It's different. Yeah, it's for sure. It's way different.
So John, I found it interesting when we were chatting before that there was a point in time where your father was saying, okay, it's time for him to kind of move on to the next stage and maybe golf full time and let go of the business. So we chatted about him selling you the business, right? Mm-hmm. So you didn't just inherit his business, you had to buy his portfolio as well. And so what was that like, that conversation? Looks like we might be having some tech difficulties here.
Yeah,
We'll- we'll-
maybe the question was nah,
yeah,
like
maybe it was too emotional for John there. So we'll just give John a minute here. This is the kind of stuff that happens on these shows, and my internet was actually kicking out before John's was a little bit before. I'm gonna have to call my cable company and tell them to get their act straight. I think a lot of people are. Yeah, so Elliot, you got something else for us, man? Keep us entertained here because it's a little bit awkward sitting here talking to myself, man, when there's nobody else on the screen.
Yes, you know what? I have some Santana now. We can do it actually.
Yeah, might as well break out some tunes, man. Let's get a little bit more upbeat here.
Oye, ¿cómo va? Bueno, pausa. Oye, ¿cómo va? Man, I love Santana, you know.
He is good, man. He is good. Just someone that is just that skilled.
Yeah,
That-
yeah. I love
who's
it.
Sorry, go ahead, Elio.
No, I was saying that I love Santana because he mixes spirituality with music and it's pretty cool.
So who is your favorite artist? We're going to switch here gears a little bit until we get John back on. So if you're still watching, thanks for keeping with us here. Sometimes these things happen, but hopefully we'll get John back on here. So we're gonna talk about some funner stuff here, get the mood going a little bit. So who's your favorite artist, Elio?
You know, one of them was Michael Jackson, honestly. One
Oh,
of them,
interesting.
yeah. And the reason is because I love engaging with people. I know only about, playing the music and all of that, but most about engaging with people and creating the experience. I always say that people will not remember what you play, but how you made them feel. So Michael Jackson was a genius at making you feel that you were on top of the mountain, That is the reason he's probably one of the best entertainers around the world. So, yeah.
I was a big Michael Jackson fan too, man. I remember as a kid, I used to have that red leather jacket. I thought it was cool back in the day. So I was a big fan. It was a little bit sad to see him go. Obviously, he had some challenges in his life, and I think it's a lesson for a lot of us because we think that people that have money and are famous, and man, he was so loved by, we're talking hundreds of millions of people, not just millions of people, hundreds of millions of people, if not in the billions.
Yeah.
And look what ended up happening to him. It was very sad.
Yeah, it was very fun. I mean, I am from Cuba, and even in Cuba, like countries, in Latin America in general, they used to love Michael Jackson. And here's the interesting thing. Now that you mentioned my favorite artist, right? I grew up listening to Eagles, to Michael Bolton, to stuff like that. That was the first music that I heard when I was a little kid, because of my dad.
Yeah, because your dad. And where was your dad? Was it when he was here or when he was back there that he kind of...
In Cuba. We were in Cuba. Yeah, but we used to listen to Kool and the Gang, the Grupo Toro, Africa, all of that, man. They love the 80s music from the United States, even though it was kind of like censored in Cuba. So we used to listen to that a lot. So I really love that. But what about you? What do you like? What is your favorite music?
Man, I kind of like all kinds of music. I would say eclectic. I like rock. I'm a big fan of the 80s. I like classical. I used to listen to a lot of hip hop and rap back in the day when Eazy-E and those guys were out. But I'll listen to anything good that just kind of gets me in the mood. I'm not a big lyrics guy. I kind of listen to the tune and whatever the tune is that kind of fits my mood or the mood that I want to be in is kind of what I listen to. So I think music, I don't listen to a lot of music right now. I don't know why that is. Maybe because I'm just busy with my family and doing other things with the business. And typically when I'm in the car, I have an audiobook on, so I'm not listening to that much music. But the only time I get to listen to music is when I'm working out because I need to get pumped up a little bit. So I gotta,
Nice.
I play some music there, play a little Tiesto and his jams. But
I do have some questions for you though. Is it true they say that you you can become what you're listening to? So for example, somebody that is listening to like hip hop music that has bad words on it all the time may be like, getting influenced by that. But you know what? John is back, man. So we're gonna keep that question for later.
oh,
All
now he sounds
right.
like a chipmunk.
We'll see what.
John, something's going on with your mic, man. You sound like a chipmunk.
I don't know what it is. Okay, we're gonna. It sounds kind of. Okay.
This should be a bloopers episode. This is awesome.
Okay.
John, you may wanna log out and log back in and see what ends up happening.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna answer that question in the meantime. But yeah, and I'll show you. I'll share with you an interesting study because, as you may or may not know, I'm a big fan of neuroscience. I've been studying neuroscience for you could say almost 2.5 decades, and they used to call it brain science or brain hacking back then. But what they've identified is, here, get this, Elio, you can actually play music in a room and have a person's brain hooked up to, let's just say, an EEG, for example, which measures your brain waves. And the brain waves will actually measure the music, or will actually be in tune and synchronized to the music. So some scientists can actually tell what the tune of the music is just by looking at these people's brain waves. So going back to what your question is, can the music, when we're talking about moods, absolutely, because it affects your brain waves in terms of how your brain is syncing and firing up. So that's just a quick FYI for you guys out there.
Yeah,
John, are you back?
Yes, yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Oh, we can hear you now, my man.
John
now we're
is
getting
back.
rocking and rolling.
And let me tell you, John used to play as well. So I'm going to leave you guys. I'm going to go backstage. But John used to be a musician. So you need to talk to John about that too. Hey, I'm going to see you guys next time.
Thanks, Elliot.
Thanks, man. Sorry,
Hey, so
all of a sudden your computer's restarting. The whole thing shut down. I'm like, no.
It's all good. That happened to me the other day. Yeah. Not sure what's going on, but that's tech for you, right? I think people have to get used to this, right? I was afraid at the beginning because my business, I have a home office for convenience. I like to be around my family, and before COVID, it was a little bit embarrassing. Sometimes my kids would be running through the back screen, and I'd be like, you know what? I apologize, but now it's kind of like a normal thing now, where my son, he doesn't like to wear much clothes. He's 7 years old, but he runs around in his underwear, and he'll just flash by here. So it's kind of the norm now.
Yeah, I don't think it bothers anybody. If it does, then hey, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So John, thanks. We were talking about your background when your father. The last question before we cut out there was, buying the business from your father.
Yeah.
And so what was that conversation like?
Yeah, he always wanted me to have the business, and he felt like I was more I had the temperament to take it to the next level, whereas he was much more of he was an incredible salesperson, and he loved sales, but he never really enjoyed the building of something bigger. Like when he retired, I think we had about 8 or 9 people, and even some days, those people would drive him nuts, because his whole focus was, I'm going to go sell. His goal, his life goal, literally. I mean, you'd ask him about being goals, and his goal was, I want to sell one more policy. That was the goal. So as soon as I sold one policy, he says, I always go back to my goal. What was my goal? Yeah. Sell one more policy. So that's just the way he was. And he said, look, you're going to take this thing to different levels. You're more in tune and prepared, and you're able to do what he had no interest in doing. So in 2008, he retired. But one of the things we were talking about before was, he was really good at letting me fail. And if I can give any advice to those parents out there that are in business with their kid or a relative or whatever, it's important to be able to teach and coach and educate. But you learn more from failing than you ever do from winning. And he knew that. He knew that, you know, early on, especially, there were times when I'd be working on an account and I knew if he got involved, we'd win the account, no question. And he wouldn't do it. He's like, John, you have to learn. You're going to learn more from failing than I will ever be able to teach you by showing you. Mm-hmm. And that, to me, you know, it was hard at the time. I remember thinking back, going, why is he letting me do this? Why is he letting me fail? Because I know that he could help me through this. And now that I look back on it, I totally understand it, because now I have the strength and the confidence and the belief that no matter what happens, if something happened and I had to go back to selling one insurance policy at a time and building one relationship at a time, I could do it. I did it once. I can do it again.
Yeah, that belief is so important, I think, for parents right now. I see a lot of parents spoon feeding their kids all the way through to adulthood. And so I think that's really important, the point that you made. I would say out of all the things that my mother taught me, it was to learn things for myself. She used to have the saying, God gave you 2 hands and a brain, use them. and I still remember that. And I'm so thankful that she did that, because I learned. And when my kids ask me for help, they know that my first thing that I'm going to ask them is, did you try to do it on your own? Because you only need help after you actually try it. Other, you're just looking for a gift. And we give kids sometimes a little bit too many gifts these days. I know our kids, sometimes I consider them to be spoiled. But that's an important lesson for you, what you just mentioned there. And we're talking about this dynamic of family businesses because this is very prevalent right now. I see this a lot in terms of the work that I do and my team does in working with organizations where there's that transition period. And what you talked about, again, is sometimes frustrating for people in your situation, because I know a lot of guys that are in family businesses and their dads or moms are still involved. They're not really wanting to expand. And then the kids, the next generation, like, you know, there's so much opportunity. We got to do this. We got to keep up with the times. We got to go digital. And the parents or the father or mother just say, no, you know what, we're good as it is. Did you ever feel that frustration before your dad made that decision?
My dad thought computers were a fad and they were going to and they were going to go away. He doesn't understand social media. He doesn't get any of that. So yes, so before he retired in 2008, so it was just sort of kind of getting, you know, the technology boom was just starting. Yeah, there were times that I'm like, Dad, you don't understand. We need to do this or that, or, you know, whatever. But, you know, he understood enough to know that, hey, he only worked until he was 59. So he knew he was going to say, here, it's yours. Go do with it whatever you want. You know, now it's yours. I've taught you everything I to teach you. You know, take this to wherever you want to take this to. And I had a lot of respect for him, and he had a lot of respect for me. So I was never one of these kids that, oh, come on, Dad, you know, why aren't you doing this, and get upset. I was respectful enough to know that I'm just a team, you know, on the team, and I'm an employee, and that's my, you know, I had to fill my job. I had to do my job, whatever that was. As when you're on a team, you have to do that part to the best of your ability. And my job at that point was to build my own book and go out and grow my business and build relationships with people. And that's what I did. So if there was ever a situation where I came to him and said, hey, we need to do this or we need to do that, you know, he didn't always do it. I mean, he did. Sometimes he did. And sometimes he listened. And sometimes he's like, I don't even understand what you're asking me. He's like, you know, I don't, you know, that's just not the way he did things. So,
Well, again, you mentioned a really good point there because you're a self-made man. You started from scratch. He taught you how to do that. That's important. And what that led to, it sounds like, was the respect that he had for you as a man, as a business owner, as an entrepreneur. I see this being a challenge again in the work that we do with men, because I see a lot of men struggling because they feel that they don't have the respect from their father. And as it doesn't matter how old we are as guys, we could be 30 years old, we could be 50 or 60, we still look up to our dads and we still want to be respected by our dads. It's really funny how that works.
yeah.
Even when we may know more about the industry or be doing better than them and have better successes, we still need that respect. And that's important. But it really comes down to doing things ourselves and being our own men. Because I know there's people in business out there, I've seen this, I've witnessed it, where the second generation, for example, isn't respected, and they're not respected because they haven't gone through the grind like the parents have. They haven't put in the time and the effort, started from scratch like you did, because that in itself creates, and you can say, I'm not going to say commands, but it does command respect from a lot of people. So I appreciate your story because I think a lot of people need to hear that.
Mm-hmm. I was always on commission when I worked with my dad. He never gave me a salary. He would give me accounts very rarely, but I was 100% commission. So one of his favorite sayings was, your raise is effective when you are. And because of that comp plan that I was on, it was never a question of, give. It was, if I wanted to make more money, I had to go build more relationships and do a better job and get referrals. And, it was very clear to me. So I focused on that. There was never, I see sometimes with parents and kids, it's, their kids on a salary or, working for the business on a salary. And I don't know. I think that the kid, it's harder on the parent, in my opinion. It's harder on the parent than it is the kid. The parent has to make some really tough decisions, and I just always felt like it was harder on him than it was for me. He designed it something that I could run as fast as I wanted to. It was up to me, and that's what we try to do with the people in our agency. Is most of them are on commission. The salespeople are on commission of some sort, and it's up to them to go use the tools that they have to build whatever it is they want to build within our platform, so to speak. So
yeah, especially in the industry that you're in, which is it's all commission based, right? It's based on policies. You get a certain percentage. It makes sense.
Yeah.
So what do you talked about having seven offices at the beginning and then having to prune back because I'm assuming because of COVID challenges and the environment that we're in. What's your biggest challenge right now with your business?
I think frankly, and this is going to sound different, maybe, I don't know. I think the biggest challenge that I have is being a human from a relationship standpoint amongst my people. I built the book that I built because I went out and sold something and made a sale. Now it's, have this group of people that they have to go out and make a sale. And, my struggle is my wife calls it mushiness. She says, you're a guy and you're tough and you're cold and you don't have emotions and we're trained to go out and kill, that kind of thing. But she said, you just try to be mushy. So frankly, my challenge right now is to try to be as thoughtful and listen to my teammates and listen to the people that are on the team and figure out what they need. And sometimes it's not about a thing. Sometimes it's about just listening to what they're going through and trying to understand and trying to, guys are typically problem solvers. We always want to solve the problem. And now I have to, because I have all of these people that are sort of relying on me, I have to be more sensitive to the people in our organization and figure out, sometimes they just want a pat on the back and say, hey, great job. And sometimes, sometimes they want other things. But that to me is the biggest challenge, is as I've grown the organization to the number of people that, that are in our organization, I really have to push myself to be sensitive and listen and learn about what these people are doing and that sort of thing. The insurance part is that's a whole nother thing, and we've sort of figured that out. It's the human piece of this. Of we've hired I have a meeting at 9:00 and we've hired a new person. I haven't even met her yet, so I need to listen to her and get to know her and feel like I'm there for her, and she can come to me if she has an issue or a problem. And that's the way you build people. That's really the way you build people is that way. So if we have any challenges, as we grow, it's harder and harder to do that. And and that's what I've tried to really push myself to listen and be around my teammates, not only as a leader, but as a friend. Last weekend I spent the weekend with one of my agents just as a friend. We had a group of friends going. It had nothing to do with the agency. The agency didn't pay for anything. It was just, we were there hanging out, and because he's a great guy, and but it's hard sometimes to do that with everybody as you grow, and that's a tough thing, but that's my goal. So that's the challenge that I have, is trying to build relationships with each and every person on our team.
So, that's really, that is what ends up happening for a lot of businesses at that stage. And I could totally feel where you're coming from, because you're a people person when it comes to your clients, right? You're out there for the business. You build those relationships. Now it's kind of pulling back and saying, okay, I got to focus on this. And you're absolutely right, because it's a different game altogether. It's a different hunt. And what I've done, and what I get other people, business owners, to do is, hey, you have to flex your skills in that area anyways, because when you get to that size, you have to be a leader from the perspective of people. And when we used to consult with organizations on a growth strategy, people would hire us and they would say, okay, we want to grow from 1 locations to 2 or 10 to 20 or whatever that looks like. The first thing we used to do was go there and take a look at strategy. So we had a 3-pronged system, you could say: strategy, people, and systems. And our first approach was always strategy. Let's go and take a look at the strategy. Let's look at the environment, the competitive analysis, and then we'll see the products and services, and then we'll see how we can grow. But we have switched that now. And that's been over probably the last few years, where when first thing we go in and we take a look now is we go and take a look at the people. What is the leadership style of the people? Do you have the right people on your team? Are they being, you can say, do they have the right structure in terms of compensation? Do they have the right motivation? All of these elements. And then we take a look at the strategy, because we've noticed that when you have the right people, the strategy is a lot easier to create and execute. And so it was a good lesson for us internally. And what we've simply done is, for a lot of people, you're a people person, you like people. So I don't think it's so difficult for you. But there's business entrepreneurs out there that just don't like to lead people. They just don't like to have to go there and encourage their people to do better, or listen to how their family might be challenged, or their kid is sick, or whatever that is, all the other worries that have nothing to do with their business, but has everything to do with their performance. Mm-hmm. And so it's important, if someone is out there listening, is A, build your skills as a leader, but B, if you still don't feel like you want to do that, because as a business owner, it's important to do what you enjoy doing, not necessarily what you have to do. So if you're a person out there that says, I just don't want to do that, I don't care about that, is hire someone. Hire a really good team lead, a manager, whatever that looks like, even if it's a CEO or president or whoever, whatever position that is, hire someone that can be that people person for you and represent you as a brand, as an organization, because that's going to take a lot of headache off. What are you seeing in this environment right now? You have 50 something employees. Florida, I believe, well, you're in 30 plus states.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit different in the US than it is in Canada because we're a lot more stringent here with the rules and regulations now with COVID.
Mm-hmm.
We're just coming out of another lockdown ourselves. How are you? How are your team members, your employees feeling now? Just a general morale from a morale perspective.
It's hard because a lot of them, when they worked in the office, they had camaraderie amongst their group. They were working closely with a lot of people on their team and that sort of thing. A lot of them are working from home. That's one of the reasons why we've gotten rid of some of the offices, is because frankly nobody was going into the office, so there wasn't any need to have an office because they were working home. I think the biggest thing is they have to have a space that is conducive to being able to work from home. And once you have a space, then you have to be the type of person that enjoys working from home. It's not for everybody. There's no question. Not everybody can be that work from home person. I have a benefits person, the agent that works for me, and she's like, John, please let me go into the office. I just, and that's just the way she is. She's outgoing and she wants to go into an office. And, so I think it depends. Our team, they're amazing to begin with, but some of them have transitioned into a work from home situation, and some of them are still coming into the office just because it's easier for them, it's more comfortable for them. So we have a limit, and we're very safe about social distancing and masks, and we still really aren't letting customers come in and meet with us. Digital gives us a way to do business, many different ways now. So we don't necessarily need to see people face to face. But that's the biggest challenge for us is the being able to support our teammates if they are working from home. What do they need? Do they need technology? Do they need internet? Do they need, whatever it is they need to be able to do their job, and trying to support them in every way that we can is probably the biggest challenge.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you say that, because you made a really good point there. Not everybody is built to work at home. And I'm going to talk about my perspectives and my experience. We had a number of clients that had 800 to 1,000 plus employees in big buildings say, we're just going to exit this building completely. And I said, you got to hold on there for a second, because you don't want to make any rash decisions. A, that's a big decision to make. And B is, you want to take a look at long term. And here's my personal perspective based on our experience, is that the businesses that have employees where there's collaboration that is needed will still need to have physical spaces, and will have a competitive advantage over the businesses that don't. Because if you have employees that are working from home, they're not going to have, as you mentioned, the same camaraderie. They're not going to have that same team environment. They're not going to be able to get away from the stresses at home from their children or their relationship or whatever that's bugging them at home, where they can actually be more conducive in that team environment. Some people just thrive going and being in teams. And so I think every business has to take a look at that as an individual business and say, what's the best for us? Not follow the trend, because I see a lot of businesses following the trend.
Yeah.
And then weigh the costs of the physical building or office space or whatever that looks like versus the benefits of having a competitive advantage by having an office space. Because I'm telling you, there's businesses that will get ahead because they still are meeting in person, obviously doing it in a safe way. But right now, so many people are stuck at home feeling down, and they want to feel up. And when you get a bunch of people who are feeling up together, they're going to be more conducive. They're going to be more productive. They're going to be more creative, more innovative. Your business is going to thrive. So I'm glad you shared those challenges, because I think there's a lot of business owners out there that are just scratching their head saying, do we close our locations? Do we keep them open? What's going to happen? My personal opinion is to hold off for a little bit and make that decision as the environment starts to get better and better.
Yeah. Or be prepared to go back, because, you could have a wonderful employee that just says, look, I can't do it. I can't work from home. Well, then you have to decide, okay, do I want to lose this employee, this teammate, by not having an office, or is it worth me getting an office and putting them back in an environment that they can succeed in. It's sort of like, okay, it's a tool, so to speak, that this teammate needs to do their job. And part of it may be, okay, go, find a small space. I mean, there's plenty of office space available now. Go find a small space that he or she can work in that is, maybe somebody else on the team wants to come back to an office. So you have to, as a leader, again, you have to try to listen to your employees as much as you can and know that, hey, this decision could mean whether you keep this teammate or not. And, if it'd be kind of like if Tom Brady says, hey, I want to wear, I need shoes to be able to play. Well, I would go find him a pair of shoes so that he can, can play his sport, because otherwise you're going to lose him and he's going to go to another team that can find him a pair of shoes. So
it's funny that we're in this environment now, because before employees were saying, I want to work from home. Yeah. And they wanted the flexibility working from home. And so there was a whole retention or acquisition strategy to get people who wanted to work from home. Yeah. Now it seems like it's a little bit of the opposite, or it's at least a mix here. So
yes, correct.
Yes. So that's great. So John, you provided awesome value here today. I really want to thank you. You've definitely opened up my eyes in a few areas in terms of the work that we do. And I'm definitely sure that there's gentlemen out there that have listened to this and watched this and said, you know what, and picked up on something that is going to change their business or change their life or change their approach. So I definitely want to thank you. I appreciate your time. And I hope you have an awesome day. I don't know if you have any last messages for the people out there, the audience out there.
No, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate, working. I appreciate what you do. I've watched a lot of your content, and you really have a great message from a positive, uplifting, how to help everyone get better, and men, women, whatever. I think that's a path or a strategy or a direction that people need to continue to work on. And we're all not perfect, but we're all going down that path to try to improve every day. So
thank you. I appreciate that. And before we send you off, if whoever wants to get a hold of you, where can they go?
They can go to the internet at darshakowinsurance.com is the website address. That might be the longest website address in the history of websites. But if you Google John Darr, you can probably find me. I'm on Facebook. I have an amazing podcast with my friend Elio, Premium Time with John Darr is a new podcast that we just started. So if you want to go check that out, feel free to go check that out. And I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter.
All over, baby.
All over.
You're full press. Right on.
Yeah. So unlike my father, I love social media. So
that's awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you for joining us today, John. And I'm sure we're going to stay in touch here for sure.
Sounds good. Thanks, Purdeep.
Take care. So we just had an awesome guest on the show, John, a successful entrepreneur who has an insurance company that ranges across 32 states, 56 employees, as he mentioned, started from scratch. If you listen to his story, I have the utmost respect for John, because he's a gentleman that is walking the talk. He started from scratch. He picked up the phone, had to sell. And insurance is not an easy business, right? We have this perception of car salesmen. But you know what? Sometimes in the insurance industry, it's very similar. It's very tough. And so I have to give him a lot of respect for that. Some of the points, there's two things that I really want to share again and just recap here from this episode is just starting from scratch, there's a lot to learn from that. And there's a lot of respect that you gain. The second is he also talked about the challenges that business owners are facing right now when it comes to when you switch over from the point of the hunt to being more of a leader and encouraging and inspiring your team to be the hunters. And that's not always easy. That changes you can say your approach. It changes the skills that you need to be an effective business owner. And you also have to want to do it. So if it's not something you want to do, then hire someone that can help you do that. But again, just an awesome story, an awesome gentleman, tons of value. Again, if you haven't gotten a copy of The Complete Man, you can. It is absolutely free right now. Just go to completemanaudio.com and use the promo code limited free, all one word, and you will get the audio copy of The Complete Man for absolutely free. This is a book that I wrote over the course of 2020. It was perfect timing, obviously, because of COVID, we were locked down, but it's very important to me, because I wrote this based on my own personal stories and the experiences that I have in terms of working with men, and the inspiration that led me to working with men and helping entrepreneurs, executives, professionals, and CEOs not only have a better business, but have a better life as well. And it was the right timing, because right now a lot of guys are challenged with the environment that we're in, with COVID, with the social, you could say the isolation, but then the economy is really having a tough time. A lot of businesses are having a tough time. Employees are having a tough time. Kids are even having a tough time because a lot of kids are out of school. We need to have more positive energy out there, but we also need to have practical insight in terms of how to make our businesses and our lives better. And that's what this book is all about. So get your copy, go to completemanaudio.com, promo code limited free. So again, if you don't know our regular times, we start Thursday, 8 a.m. Eastern time, every Thursday morning. This show goes live on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on Facebook. So please join us, please like and share. And I completely appreciate your support with this show. So I hope you have an awesome day. Take care.